Today, American capitalism has gone wrong in so many ways, but we can rescue it.
Well, welcome back to Up. I'm David Gurr. That is the former governor of Colorado and 2020 presidential hopeful John Hickenlooper making his pitch to New Hampshire voters Friday. As he makes his way across battleground states, he is polling near the bottom of the pack of nearly 24 Democratic candidates. He's in New Hampshire this weekend meeting with voters, discussing his plan for the economy, which he just released. And I spent Friday with the governor. At the end of the day, we talked for a good half hour at Butter and Jam in Nashua. You were such an unabashed optimist. When I listened to you deliver this speech on the economy, worry came across time and time again. You were worried about the economy. Help me square the two things, your optimism about this country and the worry that you feel, that you said you feel about the economy.
No, I'm still an optimist. And you can't be an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, without being an optimist. Persistence and grit are a huge part of my success, and I think the success of every entrepreneur. So we're going to get there. It's a little bit like what Churchill said about America. You can count on us to do the right thing, but only after we've exhausted every other possibility.
I see you standing in the center, and I see a leftward pull. A lot of your opponents are embracing some of these ideas and moving more toward the left. Why are you such an ardent believer at this point that there is a space for a centrist right now? How hard is it to resist that leeward pull to the left?
You know, the bottom line, it's not hard at all for me to resist, right? I came out to Colorado as a geologist. I thought I'd be a geologist my whole life. And, there were commodity prices tanked. Our company got sold, I got laid off, and there were no jobs. And government did nothing to retrain me. I had no way to, I had to reinvent myself, and I was lucky. It turned out I was an entrepreneur. I was 100 times better at running restaurants than I ever was as a geologist. So my good fortune. But the bottom line is a lot of people don't have that option, especially nowadays.
You made the case that you're worried about the U.S. economy. You saw the jobs report that came out on Friday morning, an unemployment rate we haven't seen since 1969. What do you say to an American who looks at that and says, why should I be worried about how things are today?
Well, first, after the Great Recession, which was the result of George W. Bush's approach, which are very similar to Donald Trump's in many ways, to get rid of regulation, let capitalism run rampant. We saw what happened in 2007, 2008. Recovering from that Great Recession, it has been almost continuous, increase in jobs, dropping in unemployment. The economy's been going great. And Trump, even with the gigantic borrowed tax cut, which most of the companies use for stock repurchase, right, didn't really help the workers, but most of that tax break was to the richest, the largest corporations, the richest, 1 or 2% of the country. And even with all that, the inclination of that improvement hasn't changed, right? It's just what was happening is continued to happen. I'd say just because you've got a stock market high doesn't mean the country is any stronger.
There's a big debate about whether this primary is about personality or about policy. I look at what you released on Friday, detailed list of what you want to do when it comes to the economy. We've seen it from Senator Elizabeth Warren and some others as well. Is this about policy? Is it about personality at this point?
Well, historically, American politics has always been about both, right? There's policy, and you've got to know what you're doing. Your policy's got to make sense. But in the end, and historically, most Americans want to vote for somebody they want to sit down and have a beer with, right? Why not sit down with the guy who made the beer, right? No, I think there is a level of people vote based on likability as much as they do policy.
Is Trump, post-Trump Washington, something that can be changed were there to be a Democratic president?
I learned something. We had the worst flood in the history of the state in 2013 in Colorado. We lost, it was 13 people were lost. And Governor Peter Shumlin from Vermont had a similar catastrophic flood a couple years before. And he called me while the flood was still happening. And we talked for a little while, and I said, well, have you got any advice? He said, when you go through the worst that people could imagine, don't promise you're going to come back and get it back to where it was. Promise them that you're going to get back to something better than what you had before. And I think when you look at what Donald Trump has done to our international relations, and what are there 1,000 jobs unfilled in the State Department right now? I was at the the Munich Security Conference a couple of months ago, and people in NATO don't know who to call in the U.S. government anymore. They have no contact point at all. These are senior diplomats. It's a train wreck. But, we were struggling. We had real challenges before. This might be the perfect opportunity to come back and rethink, how do we make it better? Just after a natural disaster, and, I think it's fair to say that President Trump is a form of a natural disaster in very real ways. Let's go back to a better place and take the opportunity to rebuild our structures and our frameworks and get more people together on it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.